Are you ready? Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, April 4th, 2022. This is a in-person meeting. It's at City Hall in the Commissioners' Room. It is a workshop meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start off with roll call. Commissioner Tony Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Go Jayhawks.
Commissioner Ed Stranowski. Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Tim Bennett.
Present.
And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a quorum of the commissioners. We're able to formally conduct business. Thank you all for being here. I'd also like to thank city staff that's here. Glenn is off today. Matt Janis, Building and Licensing, is off today. Joining us today is City Manager Sharon Lynn, and also Howard Rothstein from the Building and Licensing Department of Code Enforcement. Also, the this is the first time I can use this title, Assistant Manager Evan Miller is here to join us. Also, Chief Banks and Dispatcher Greg Tietmeyer. Sorry. Very good. I would like to welcome all the watchers, everybody watching remotely, and thank you for being on. Also, I'd like to thank those here in person. We appreciate you being here. I am going to change the sequence and make the first item of new business the proclamation, so that the police and the dispatchers can get back to work. But before we go there, we'll start off with the correspondence. The only correspondence I recall getting was, I think, yesterday from Egg Restaurant, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. With that, we'll go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Provided that materials arrive in time, the city's contractor expects to take 2 days later this week to make repairs at the Lake Gerard pump station. We expect that one lane of North First Street between Virginia Avenue and 2nd Street or Lake Avenue will need to be closed while repairs take place. The city has received a $5,000 urban and community forestry grant from the Delaware Urban and Community Forestry Council and the Delaware Forest Service. This grant will be combined with commemorative tree program funds to help pay for street tree planting later this year around the Delaware Avenue Comfort Station. And tomorrow, the kickoff of the Stormwater Utility Task Force will take place at 1 p.m. here at City Hall. We're prepping for the season. The Streets Department has been power washing the sidewalks and replacing some of the bricks along Rehoboth Avenue, attempting to even out some of the bumpier areas along the sidewalk. Painting of the benches and lifeguard stands has been completed. Restriping of crosswalks and intersections on Bayard, Rehoboth Avenue, First Street, and King Charles Street was completed last week. New pay station foundations are scheduled to be completed by April 11th next week, and the new meters and pay stations will be installed shortly after that, in time for the season to start in mid-May. New screens, a new door, carpentry and painting are underway on the Anna Hazard House porch. This is an endeavor the city's undertaken to assist the museum folks. The Rehoboth Beach Police Department will be participating in the DEA's National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, April 30th at the police station. This is an annual event. The event provides a safe, convenient, and responsible way for residents to dispose of expired or unused prescription medications. And staff has met with the Sandcastle project manager to coordinate safety requirements for the ongoing work at the Sandcastle throughout the summer months. And that's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Sharp?
Just wondering, I don't remember, the take back, does that actually take place at the police station?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Also, any update on hiring for the seasonal staff, or what kind of shape are we in?
Yes, the police department has 20 out of the 26 allotted. Is that right, Chief?
That's correct, and still conducting interviews and test dates upcoming.
Okay. The parks, or the parking department is fully staffed. They have a big pull on those that are returning, and they're completely staffed. The lifeguards are pretty much underway. They have more than they did last year at this time, so hopefully they'll be up to full complement or close to that.
That's correct. I'm talking to Captain Giles this past week. He said that with upcoming test dates or whatever, he should have more than enough. So he should be able to close it down within the next 2 weeks.
Okay. And the streets department, unfortunately, is still struggling to get their complement of folks hired. It's a continuous struggle with them. We had 2 that were hired and dropped out within a day or 2. They didn't like the work or whatever happened. They resigned shortly after they were hired. So we're still advertising, we're still trying to recruit, trying to give incentives. We did give a housing stipend to 2 seasonal officers who accepted that, and we'll do what we can to get people in.
Thank you for that update. Appreciate it.
Walter, you have turn on that microphone if you would, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
And aim it up a little bit. You're a little tall.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Henlopen Avenue. A question to the city manager. What did that mean about the summer and the Sandcastle?
The Sandcastle intends to work through the summer months. Building and licensing has met with them and taking on safety precautions to keep pedestrians and traffic moving.
I'm sorry, that's not enough an answer for me. Is the sidewalk going to be open?
Part of the sidewalk will be open at times.
Why can't it all be open? They get their work done early or do it in the fall. If it's a problem working overhead, why can't they build a superstructure where people can walk underneath it? Where we do stuff for the Henlopen. This is downtown. This is a critical sidewalk. It sounds to me like the sidewalk is going to be obscured.
Well, do the best we can.
I'm sorry, aren't we in the position to set the standard? I'm not sure what is the standard. Are they going to cover it? Or you don't know?
Are they
And
going to
we need an
cover,
answer to it.
the sidewalk would be open in parts.
I'm sorry, in what?
The sidewalk in parts will be open.
Did you say in part?
Correct.
Why can't it be completely open? They make scaffolding that you can walk under. Cap it. Is the parking going to be there, what little there is? The city can do better.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else?
Yeah, yes.
Commissioner Legree, please.
Are we going to be able to fully staff the picking up the trash on the beach and the boardwalk? I know that's a critical thing for the streets. Hard to do.
Well, as we did last year, we're going to have to tighten our belts with the staff that we have. So if critical functions, or I should say, some functions cannot be, fully staffed, then we won't have that, including recycling on the boardwalk. So that's one big issue where we have to cut back, and if we have to do that, then we'll continue to.
Or I would really offer to help you in any way to raise those stipends, and if housing allowance is a problem, I'd be willing to really go hard to try to help you out there. But, so we're available if you need us.
Okay, thank you. I don't think the housing allowances plays into the picture so much in the streets department. It's, those who, for whatever reason, don't want to do that work. They're working outside all summer in all different weather conditions. They either don't pass the screening process that we have, or again, they start and they leave shortly after that.
I understand that. I just hate it. I wish that we could get that tractor and that trailer back on the beach again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see us get the tractor and trailer back on the beach, and just, I'd do anything to help you.
Okay,
Thank you very much, City Manager.
Manager, so are you saying that it's not known yet whether the recycling will be on the board, or it's definitely not going to be?
Well, as of this time, we don't have the staffing to put additional staff on the recycling on the boardwalk.
That is labor intensive,
I
the
know
way
it
we're
is,
gonna have to
yeah,
do it.
yeah. It's just we've been waiting
All
a
right,
long time.
thank you.
I'm sorry, one of the follow-up
Go ahead.
questions along their staffing. I know in past year, we did outsource the bulk pickup program. Has there been any consideration of how that's going to be staffed this year, in-house, out-of-house? Do we just don't know yet?
I don't know if that was mentioned, so probably not.
Okay, thank you.
It will happen. We just don't know
Right.
who's facilitating it.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I want to remind everybody that support documents, when available, are available on the online portal. Look up the agenda, and you'll find the support documents that we actually see and work from. There's no city solicitor's report today. And with that, we'll go to committee reports. We have an oral report, I think, from Animal Issues.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We had our first meeting last week with the Animal Issues Committee. It was formerly chaired by Commissioner Byrne. And there were two open items, or two action items, that we're working on. One of them you probably saw in other places, about a dog park, which seems to be the ongoing recurring issue in this city with dog lovers and our visitors, excuse me, our visitors who love dogs. So there's a group within the committee that's going to do some investigation and come back to us at our next meeting to see if in fact there is land or some suitable area where we could actually consider having some sort of dog park. The other thing that did come out, which was news to me, was that there seems to be some unofficial dog parks in the city that people use down by Poodle Beach. People, I guess, are surprised when they get there and realize that that's not a dog beach. And then the other one was, I think, the elementary school was the other place where people seem to be in the know to take their dogs there, which also is not supposed to happen. So that's the first, or probably the major issue we're tackling right now. The other one is there was a cling or a magnet that was developed to remind people not to leave their pets and we-headed children unattended in their vehicles when it's hot in the summer. And I was working with Assistant City Manager Evan Miller to decide what's feasible and what's not, based upon the different parking options we have as to get that message out. So I'll be doing a full report on that and getting it to the city manager's office this week. That's it.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Commissioner. Appreciate that. With that, we have identified no old business. We'll go to new business, and the first item, as I mentioned earlier, will be to item C. This is what we'll start out with, Mayor's presentation of a proclamation recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I'm going to read from here the proclamation because it's rather long. This is a proclamation on behalf of the mayor and on behalf of all the Mayor and Commissioners. Proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, which is April 10th through the 16th, 2022. Whereas Rehoboth Beach Public Safety Telecommunicators dispatched 7,431 calls for police, ambulance, and fire services in 2021. And whereas public safety telecommunicators perform one of the most stressful jobs in America, providing a reassurance voice and assistance at the other end of 911 calls. And whereas public safety telecommuters must remain calm themselves while assisting others in stressful, threatening situations. And whereas our citizens rely on public safety telecommunicators as their first line of assistance to ensure prompt responses from police officers, firefighters, and paramedics in order to protect lives and preserve property. And whereas the safety of Rehoboth Beach police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained and relayed by public safety telecommunicators. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are collectively available around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a year. And whereas Rehoboth Beach public safety telecommunicators demonstrate compassion, understanding, and professionalism in carrying out their critical job duties. And whereas each of Rehoboth dispatchers has played a vital role in catching criminals, putting out fires, and treating the injured. And whereas National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week offers an opportunity to show our appreciation for these professionals and to recognize that our health, safety, and well-being often are dependent on the commitment and steadfastness of our dispatchers. Now, therefore, I, Stan Mills, Mayor of the City of Rehoboth Beach, do hereby proclaim the week of April 10th through the 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Rehoboth Beach in honor of those public safety telecommunicators whose diligence and professionalism help keep our city and citizens safe. I'd like to have a photo op up here and thank Can you hear me, maybe? And you think? This is dispatcher 2, Gregory Tietmeyer, from the dispatch thing. I never thought I would say telecommunicators and so many times in 5 minutes. It's hard to do. He is here to accept this proclamation on behalf of all the dispatchers and telecommunicators. And I want to thank him. He has been a dispatcher for over 16 years. And in 2016, he was the Civilian Officer of the Year, I think, or Civilian Person of the Year. So in addition to his duties as a dispatcher, he also does training and other duties. So again, I want to thank him, and I'd like to present, to hold it, photo op, there you go. Thank you,
Appreciate
Greg.
it.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll go to the second item of new business, which of course is labeled A on your agenda. Discussion of patio dining on private property relative to code requirements of Chapter 215 restaurants and also Chapter 270-19, which are the use restrictions having to do with dining patios, size restrictions, physical barriers, and supplemental permit of compliance and other relevant codes. Chapter 270, of course, being part of the zoning code. I underline private there for a couple reasons. One is to make sure people understand that we're not talking about dining patios on public space, on public sidewalk. We're instead talking about dining patios And we can argue, I guess, about the definition of private. For me, private means lands used in conjunction with a restaurant. That kind of stems from the dining patio definition. Could also be said the premises of the restaurant. But again, the intent here is to have that discussion and review what the rules of the road are relative to dining patios on the premises of a restaurant. First, we want to start off real quick, as we have in the past, just reviewing what the definition of restaurant is. Establishment where meals are prepared and served on the premises. And then also, additionally, it's a restaurant when you serve alcohol, that you comply with the zoning code 270-19 use restrictions. Then we go to dining patio definition, which is within 270-19 and the zoning code, that is 270. A deck or porch, whether covered, uncovered, raised, or at grade, used in connection with a restaurant in a part of abutting, adjacent, or adjoining thereto. That's a dining patio, again, as different that a restaurant that's allowed to set up on our public sidewalks. I'm sorry. In Chapter 215, a reminder that restaurants wanting to sell alcohol must first obtain a permit of compliance for the main restaurant and a supplemental permit of compliance if desiring to operate a dining patio on the premises. Permit of compliance process includes a public hearing to allow for public comment. In the zoning 270-19, the reminder is that that includes size limitations, requirements for barriers, etc. I want to give a reminder that for decades, patrons of restaurants have had the pleasure in Rehoboth Beach of choosing to eat on outdoor dining patios on the restaurant premises when available. It's not a new concept. Also a reminder that since the pandemic started over 2 years ago, restaurants have had the opportunity to re-examine the use of their dining patios on their premises and expand their dining patios without seeking a new or modified permit of compliance. Also want to be mindful that when the governor allowed restaurants to expand their floor plans starting 2 years ago, expanding floor plans to the outdoors on public space, public sidewalks, the city embraced this new opportunity, and additionally, the city allowed for modifications of patio dining rules without requiring restaurants which serve alcohol to seek a modification of their dining patio supplemental permit of compliance. We've already mentioned publicly at the last meeting and perhaps previous meetings, and we followed up with a letter recently to all restaurants in the city of their need to come back into compliance with the permit of compliance and supplemental dining patio permits of compliance by June 1st, 2022. It's now approaching the time when the city will no longer suspend rules on the dining patios on restaurant premises. Thus, again, this agenda topic today is to allow for further clarifications of the rules for the use of outdoor dining patios as different from the recently adopted policies of outdoor dining on public space. Patrick, did you want to give any further background or introduction on the success of the dining patio program on the premises?
Just a little bit of background, and this certainly was on our radar and understanding when we were working on outdoor dining on public property. But the patio ordinance, as you referred to, Mayor, recently has been in effect since 1996 here in Rehoboth Beach. So we were really on the forefront of outdoor dining decades ago. And at that period of time, the legislation actually took place on June 14th, 1996. And when it was established to provide for 750 square feet of dining outdoors. And that agenda, or that was adjusted again, amended in 2006 and again in 2016, the restaurant code. But right now we have over 40 outdoor dining patios in the city. And again, that's grown in number since 1996. Basically, if you look at comparing how many licensed restaurants there are in the city and how many licensed patios there are in the city, we have almost 40% of all of our dining in the city has outdoor dining at this period of time in patios. So again, I think we're really been a forefront leader in outdoor dining, and it's been around so long, I think people just assume it's part of what goes on, which is a very good thing. You know, when I kind of attribute this a little bit in school back many years ago, when you had a substitute teacher that came in for a couple of months and the rules kind of fell away, and the substitute teacher then went away and your real teacher came back and the real rules came into place. And I think that's kind of how I equate this sometimes with the emergency order, when the restaurants were certainly under a lot of constraints with 50% dining indoors, so we expanded outdoors, and that proved to be successful. But now the governor's emergency order has been rescinded, and so we're back to the rules that have been in place since 1996. But it's still, there's nothing that preventing a restaurant at this period of time for applying for a patio license if they have the available space. And then we've also, as recently as just last month, opened up the public dining or outdoor dining on public space, which again has given restaurants an opportunity for some additional outdoor seating. So again, I really feel that, you know, we were been at the forefront of this for quite some time when we originally designed the patio ordinance back in 1996.
Thank you, Commissioner. So again, today's agenda topic is to allow for further clarifications for the use of outdoor dining patios on restaurant premises as different from the recently adopted policies of outdoor dining on public space. I'd like to share with you maybe 5 or 6 situations that I believe that need clarification, especially because of the suspension of the rules during the pandemic. So let's go over, say, 4, 5, 6 situations here and give the opportunity for commissioners to ask questions. I want to make sure the commissioners understand, but also like to make sure the restaurateurs and the public understand some of these situations there and why there is some confusion that was created during this suspension of rules during COVID. One situation is that restaurants that have space in front of their buildings, you know, they may have, their building facade may or may not start at the property line. And if it's set back from the property line, they may have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more feet of private property in front of their building. And I guess the question is, if they have space in front of their building, can they do whatever they want? And talking with Howard, I've got Howard here. You can help me if. And the answer is no. There are rules and limitations. We have our own rules on what can happen. For instance, in 270-19, there's a size limitation, 750 square feet. There's no wet bar, there's no music, there's barriers that are required, et cetera. And again, that's why we have the support document embedded in the agenda that shows you some of the rules of 270-19 for your reference. But also, do you have carte blanche for whatever space you can use in front of your restaurant? The answer is no, because you've also got the Office of the Alcohol Beverage Control Commissioner that has their rules. For instance, they reiterate that barriers are required, and they have some of their own rules also. Then don't forget there's no carte blanche because the fire marshal has some rules also. I believe they're the ones that dictate the minimum widths of your aisles. So for instance, if you have a 2 foot of space in front of your restaurant and you've got a 2 foot wide table there, but there's no way to access both sides of the table without going on city property, and you have no service aisle and you have no barriers, then you don't qualify, you don't comply. So wanted to share that with you, that even though you might seem to have plenty of space there, you almost need 6 foot, just like we established for the outdoor dining on public space as a minimum to be able to set up your own spaces out there. Now, I'm trying not to mention restaurants by name because I don't want us to inadvertently convey to a restaurant owner that they can indeed do something because that's the purview of building and licensing to meet with the restaurateur on site. and look at all the criteria to make sure that they fit the bill, if you will. So I'm trying to give some examples without names, if we can. So that's one situation. If you have any questions, then just ask as we go along. Also a reminder, though, that if your patio dining is not big enough for in front of your business, and you want it to spill over onto the city property, the city public sidewalk, then again, that's where the criteria and the policy for the outdoor dining on public space takes place. And again, the recommendation is to meet with building and licensing. Now, let's look at a situation where you have a dining patio this past year or 2 years, and it's been set up on your driveway. You have a driveway going down one side of your house. And you also have a dwelling inside your restaurant. Now, they had dining tables on their driveway last year, but can they do it this coming year? And the answer is that if you have a dwelling within your restaurant, that dwelling has certain requirements, such as a driveway with 2 off-street parking spaces. Therefore, because there are requirements to have that space, you cannot put dining tables in that driveway. Again, for this scenario where you have a dwelling inside your restaurant and the requirement is there. Now, there may be other requirements, but I'm just using that one example of why you really need to go talk with building and licensing. Any questions on that one? The similar situation would be if you have a dining patio or you used last year and it's in a carport. Same exact situation. If that carport there is a requirement because you have a dwelling unit inside your restaurant, then no, that carport has to remain a parking space for 2 spaces. So that would be a different situation this year with going back to conforming with all our rules. Any questions on that one? We'll go to the next one, which is if you had a driveway with no requirement for it to be there in conjunction with a dwelling. We've got that scenario. We've got all these scenarios about that. But if you don't have a dwelling and you don't have the requirement to have 2 off-street parking spaces, then yes, you can use that driveway, correct? Because it's on the premises. Again, you just have your restrictions that of size restrictions and barriers and things like that.
I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess this is a question maybe for Howard. I had noticed in the code that the definition of dining patio is a deck or porch, whether covered, uncovered, raised, or at grade, used in conjunction with a restaurant. So my question is, can the dining patio be on the ground, or does it have to be a structure, a deck? Because it says a deck or porch, covered or uncovered, but it implies that it needs a surface.
The answer is yes, so make sure you give that answer yes, and then I'm going to follow up with you.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Thank you. And the reason I said that, Howard, is because we have examples
Yeah.
of where we've done it and it's done through town. The 2 restaurants that were in the basement of the Epworth Church. I can't remember, Fable maybe, or
Debacle was one.
Debacle, Debacle, and the other ones. They were both independently given patio space on the premises, adjoining the building. One was up on the top tier and one was on the bottom tier. So we have examples, and that's why I wanted you to say yes. But do you have any further?
no, the only thing that we're asking is for them to get with building and licensing so we can go physically look at it, look at their property records to see what it was used for originally. And they'll need a permanent compliance for that space.
But it does have to be it does have to have a base, a structure, some structural component to it. It can't just be on the ground.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I agree with that, but maybe we need to clarify this.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, at Epworth Church, I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
That was sitting on brick Okay, so your question might be, well, if the brick is removed and it's just stone dust or dirt, is that acceptable? And so maybe we do need to clarify that.
The only other thing I would ask that if we pursue that, I think, and it's well worth it, is the health department may also have some regulation, if you will, about dining surfaces or what have you. I'm not sure, but just in a previous career, had a lot of dealings with health departments and their rules that jump out of nowhere. So I think that's something that may also have to be looked into, just to make sure that we're in compliance with health department rules.
Well, Commissioner, you were the liaison between the commissioners there on the outdoor patio dining, outdoor dining on public space. Would you continue that in this capacity and maybe make two notes there? One is let's look further into this so that it is clear. And then maybe the second thing we need to do is take a look at the definition of private property, lands used in conjunction with a restaurant, premises, and see if we can come up with something that serves us for everything.
I have to respond in the same way Howard did and say yes?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions on that? That was, again, that was using a driveway for on-site premises patio. Let me find my space here.
Mayor, I guess this is overall, what's the genesis, or it looks like it's been 26 years ago, of the 750 square feet? What's the magic about that number?
I don't believe anybody knows. Howard, they done research.
We have done some research to try to figure out where that came from, and no one seems to know.
The only thing of putting some,
Is that open for discussion about changing that, or is it?
Yeah, I think at this particular meeting, I think it's been noticed enough that that particular item can be discussed, yes.
I think in looking back, just to add some information there, I think looking back on it, possibly, I'm not, there's really no hard evidence in the minutes that I've gone back and read, but it's possibly developed as a percentage of the dining space that was originally opened. So if you had 5,000 square feet was the original size of a restaurant that was set, and then the 750 was a proportional percentage of that. It possibly, but we have in 2016, in updating the restaurant code, we opened it up in the sense that public or seated dining area is 2,500 square feet, and the 5,000 foot rule has been disbanded in the sense that you then can use any additional space for kitchen, service area, walkways, bathrooms, that type of thing. But seated dining is the 2,500 square feet. So people don't have to, or restaurateurs don't have to fit everything into 5,000 square feet any longer. They can expand storage, kitchen space, dining room, or not dining room, but restroom facilities, hallways, that type of thing. So again, the only correlation that I think was perhaps a guideline on that was a percentage of the original 5,000.
Commissioners, would you mind if, let me finish, I think I just have one or two more illustrations or notes, and then we'll come back to that, Tim, if you'd like to continue to pursue it. One thing I wanted to share that I thought likely lends confusion to suspension of rules during COVID, and that has to do with using a neighboring property. Again, you know, I defined this is on private lands or lands used in conjunction with a restaurant or the premises of a restaurant. I think the intent was that if the property next door is not yours, you don't own it, but you have a lease, and then that connects it to your property, then you should be able to use that. But you have to go back for another permanent compliance, of course. But I think what the most important thing for me that I'd like to get out of that scenario where you want to use the property next door, and this means whether it's on your property or owned by a neighbor, again, and you lease it, is that you have to have direct access to that property. And you can't use a city public sidewalk to access that property. So in other words, now I am going to violate my rule and use an example. Say Summer House has a big lot next door to it. If Summer House wanted to use that for expanded dining and they got a lease for that property and met any other criteria by meeting with building and licensing, they would need to access that extra dining patio without going on city public sidewalk. In that scenario, then, if you can envision it, would mean likely that you have to cut a door through the wall to be able to have direct access to that dining patio. And there are other scenarios that we could give that we know have done that. And so I just want to make that very clear on behalf of building and licensing that whether you got access through a first patio that's already there, or if there's no patio there, whether you have to cut a hole through, but you need direct access to that property. Are there any questions there? So that to me is a very important issue, that you can't use public sidewalk, and don't forget some of the other criteria that apply. You have to have barriers all the way around your dining area. As well as that it has to comply, of course, with fire, health, other state codes, not just Rehoboth codes, not just alcohol code.
What about accessing that area from public area in addition to your cut through that you're using? Is that okay for people to come in? Could you make I can think of one specific example where a restaurant owns another restaurant behind it, and they made a cut through, of course, they can serve both sides. But the other restaurant has a door to the street, just like you do. Is that all right?
I'm not following it.
Oh, like the Purple Parrot.
Yeah, I think that's.
You know, they own the restaurant behind
Well,
them.
my recollection is they have a single permit of compliance that details that they're all connected as one premise. And so you can access all of their
Yes.
dining area from on their property. You don't have to go on, the wait staff does not have to use the public sidewalk
True, they can get through
to access it. And that's the point here. The wait staff cannot go on public sidewalks, correct, Howard?
That is correct. They need to stay on their property or their leased property.
But we
But
let
I
wait
can-
staff go out on public property if we allow outdoor dining.
Well, we've got different situations there. We've got different situations. This is one set of rules, and then outdoor dining on public space is a second set of rules. No, and even with outdoor dining on public space, no, we don't allow wait staff to go on city property. They have to have access to their patio on public space from within their premises.
And this was the reason we didn't allow, I forget now what we called it.
Split.
The split dining, because the wait staff would have to go across public property to get to the split dining, right? That's why we don't allow it.
So it seems like the wait staff accessing public property is the key to this.
Actually, that's a portion of it, but the reasoning behind that really falls from the ABCC code in the sense that when alcohol is served, it has to be in a contained area so that, you know, a waiter or wait staff can go out of the building onto their patio or to the public dining outdoors, but it has to be within that controlled barrier area. They can't cross open public space, if you will, to get to another area in serving. It has to all be one contained space when serving alcohol.
People cannot come down the street and go in the back door and sit down at a table out on their patio, even though the wait staff can come and go through the building. Yes or no?
I think people can enter.
Well-
If your question is, can the public enter from the patio? They can, can't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
but
not-
there are restrictions within our code on how many entrances you can have to the dining
Okay,
patio. And there are
okay.
also restrictions in the code of the alcohol commissioner on how many entrances you
Okay.
can have. So again, what the message is here generally is that wait staff must be able to access the outdoor dining patio on the restaurant premises without going on public sidewalks. And those are situations that happen multiple times in town that we suspended the rules for. We looked the other way. Now we're entering an area where we're not suspending the rules. I think those are my main points. I wanted to give the opportunity for anybody to say anything, and let's open it up to the commissioners and then to the public also. And I'm willing to go to the public first. Do you all have anything you want to say? You don't have to. Give your name and I'd like you to give your relationship to the.
Love it for Canal Street. My husband and I are the landlords of Egg. And again, I want to thank you guys for bringing this topic up. I mean, outdoor dining is just, anytime you travel, it's just about everyone you know. That's what you look for is outdoor dining. And to have this option in Rehoboth, I think is just wonderful. And I think what the discussion you're having is very helpful. And probably everybody that wants to do outdoor dining on private property can comply with the things you're talking about. And I think encouraging any outdoor dining, anywhere, in any town, is nothing but a positive for the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Anybody else? Nope. We'll return to the commissioners for discussion on pretty much anything, but Commissioner, do you want to lead the discussion on size? Again, the size restriction, 750.
Yeah, I was just, and I don't know whether that pertains to a number of people that would want to have private dining or not. I was just wondering what the reason was. If somebody wanted to do 900, would that be a no? It sounds like it would be. I was just wondering what the reasoning was beyond that, if somebody
Yeah,
had a large
yeah.
space.
And as Commissioner Gossett articulated, we don't know 100% what the rule is. I will say that I believe that size limitations and restrictions have served us well in the past. That's why we're not a Dewey and we're not an Ocean City with loud music and et cetera, noise and disruptions and things like that. That I think are size limitations, 270-19, as well as a chapter 215 with its permit of compliance and the opportunity for the public to speak up at public hearings before the commissioners issue permit of compliance is key to our success in Rehoboth Beach.
Well, and I just have a comment that having something in place for the last 26 years that has worked well and has served our community, and it's amazing to me that we were actually on the forefront of outdoor dining, I think is a testament to good thinking and forward thinking, policies, procedures, and zoning codes.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I could think of times when we might want to have more space than 750 square feet. There would be situations that would come up. I agree with Commissioner Sharp, but would it be a harm to allow the building and licensing to have more discretionary control over that, or the city manager, or are we getting into an area where the commissioners don't want to go? I would go there. I mean, I'd be willing to go there.
Well, we got to be mindful that 270-19, which is where the size limitations are in there for dining patios, is part of the zoning code. So it's not anything that we can direct anybody to make changes to. We would have to have a formal process, go through a formal public hearing to change that if we wanted to go through that. Some thought might be, we've done a lot this year. Let's get through this next year, see how it works, and leave everything alone. The other option could be that maybe we want to pursue some kind of increase, even a slight increase. But now's a good time to debate that.
Yes, I would like to hear from people. If we have citizens who would like to change that, I'd be interested to hear about it. And if I don't hear anything,
Commissioner,
they were
if-
good to go.
If I could suggest a path forward on this is, as part of the policy that we established for dining on public outdoor space, as part of that policy, it is written that we will review it in October. And I think that would give us an opportunity with the planning and looking ahead to kind of use this as a experiment for the summer and then to codify it over the next year. So I think, not to kick the can down the road, but we do, in my mind, have the vehicle to review the code and perhaps investigate the 750 square feet at that time, which, as the mayor said, would take a change to the zoning code, which is a public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think that that would be a more opportune time that we could collect that data over the summer and just see how it's working.
Sure,
And then-
well, we should, if there's a need,
Yeah.
I would think we'd hear by October, for sure. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I'm hopeful that this is a reminder to the restaurants out there that want to modify their floor plan for dining patios, seek to do it, and seek building and licensing so they do it correctly. And those that don't have outdoor dining patios are given an awareness that they have the possibility to do that and what the rules are, and again, to go seek out building and licensing. And the sooner the better, because as a reminder, they have to have a permit of compliance, which goes through a public hearing process, and there's a timeline on that. So it may not be instant that they can, if it's favorable, that they can set up an outdoor dining patio, but at least by early summer, perhaps they can.
That's true, and Commissioner Bennett was good to bring that up because now everybody knows that we're talking about it.
Anybody else?
To that point, Mayor, so if a restaurant needs to get the permit of compliance, they should do it as soon as possible then, or does this need to be adopted first and then?
No, these are all, everything here is existing rules.
Okay.
Again, these were clarifications because we suspended so many
Right.
rules. I think people started to think that those suspended rules were the norm.
Right, okay.
And they're not the norm, and that's where we want to clarify. It seems generally we're all fine with the situation as it is, and including the size, and we can review things at the end of summer. At the same time, we review outdoor dining on public space.
Just one other clarification in the sense that with the policy that's in place for outdoor dining on public space, the process, we eliminated the step of a permit of compliance so that it's easier for the restaurant to move forward in a short period of time. So that license application goes directly to the ABCC for their review and approval. We don't have any ability to control the timeline on that, how long it takes. But if you are a restaurant or applying for permanent compliance or a patio applying for a permanent compliance, the way our code reads is that that permit of compliance is reviewed by the mayor and commissioners, and if approved, then the ABCC will use that to approve the license. So it eliminates that step, and they're issued a permit, certificate of compliance, which allows them to get their license, liquor license. But with the public dining, that is not the step, so it can be a faster process going directly to ABCC for the restaurants applying. So they don't have to wait to put on the agenda for a permit of compliance, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully it is a quicker option for them.
Thank you. And Glenn's not here to confirm, but I believe the OABBC requires a public hearing for outdoor dining on
They do.
private land or the premises or lands used in connection with a restaurant. And so that's why when we got to outdoor dining on public space, we were allowed to forego the public hearing thing. Now, we did talk during the conversation that maybe we would review in the fall and see whether we wanted to bring the outdoor dining into a public, outdoor dining on public space into the purview of the commissioners and supplemental permits of compliance, but that's to be determined in the future. So Cindy, go ahead, come on up. Reintroduce yourself if you would.
Cindy Love at 4 Canal Street. Correct me if I'm wrong. I wish Mr. Mandelis was here. Do I remember at one of the conversations in the meetings, he said that one of the options is to not include the 750 at all into this narrative that's being created. Do I remember that, or did I
I think that was addressing the outdoor dining on public space. We originally had that a square footage maximum in there, and we eliminated that completely.
Okay.
So I believe it was 300 square feet or something of that nature. So that stipulation or requirement was eliminated for the public dining on, or outdoor dining on public space.
So
Yeah.
could that not also be used in this case for on private dining?
No, again, because it's in the zoning code. It would take a change of the zoning code to eliminate the 750 square foot. So it's in there, it's a part of it, and by what I heard up here, the commissioners are content with it for 750 square foot.
Okay, is that, so, okay. The other thing, and this is not, my tenant isn't here because her husband had surgery and can't be here, but did tell me.
Oh, are you now speaking on her behalf?
I am telling you something that she wrote to me, which some newspaper local person might be able to confirm this, and it is due to the fact that the ABC is so backed up by everybody that wants outdoor dining. Deauville Beach is giving a freebie for the summer to allow reasonable time. That's just what I was told. I don't know. I'm not aware of that, but I don't know if somebody is aware of what Dewey is doing as an option I'm proposing.
Well,
So-
I would oppose that. I think we're at a point where we have articulated over and over again that we suspended the rules earlier. We've now established policy for outdoor dining on public space. We're now reiterating what's been there all along. And the restaurants, again, I said at the beginning, hopefully or should have re-examined the rules at the beginning and have already applied for outdoor dining on the premises. So I would not be interested in waiving it for another summer. I'm ready to get back to the rules, enforcing the rules, and going forward. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? With that, then I'm going to summarize. You remember the patios out on public space, public sidewalks that were authorized during the pandemic expired June 1st of this year. Also, the permit of compliance have to be in compliance with your permit of compliance if you already have one by June 1st. You have to, if you don't have a permit of compliance and you're starting from scratch, then you need to have a permit of compliance, the public hearing, et cetera, prior to being able to set up or expand your private dining patio. Want to remember that there are different rules for dining patio on public space, and there are rules for dining patios on the premises. And also the most important thing in my mind is start early and seek out building and licensing. They'll be glad to come and meet you on site and go over all the rules, because there's more rules than what we said, but these seem to be some of the more critically misunderstood. Anybody else? If not, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next item of new business, which is B, discussion of amending Chapter 253 trees, specific to Section 253-39 violations. I'm gonna, can you do me that air connection, Ann, please? Up on your screen, let me see if I can enlarge it. We have a situation here where I think the city has invested a lot of time and effort in creating a tree code and trying to keep it enforced, trying to increase our canopy. And generally, we've done a good job. Where we haven't done a good job, in my mind, is through enforcement. And it's not because we're overlooking at it. It's because we have people, builders, property owners, that are willing to give us the middle finger when it comes to cutting down trees and violating our tree ordinance. We've got builders that are willing to clear cut. These are some egregious examples, I think, but builders that are willing to clear cut because they're fine even with a $10,000 fine. It's worth it to begin construction early rather than have to wait for permission. We've got property owners that are impatient with the Parks and Shade Tree Commission applications and intentionally contract and have trees cut down by outside vendors. These, again, are purposeful violations. They're not an oops situation. So I approached Glenn Mandalis, Liz Lingo, our city arborist, Commissioner Susan Gay, because Susan Gay and her part, if you recall, is sponsoring and taking the lead on the tree code review. And I told her that this was too important for me to wait another 2, 3, 4, 6 months till we finish the tree code review and do it. So this is an introductory discussion, and I'm going to go over some of the what is proposed there. And again, I am absolutely frustrated over this situation because I am not sure what the sufficient deterrent is to people that if they're willing to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to accelerate their projects or to get what they want, then I'm not sure there's almost anything we can do. But I feel that this is an exercise where we have to do something. Susan, do you want me to explain what the proposals are, and that this is potentially different than what you might bring forward during the review of the hybrid tree code? And I want to give you a quick example too, that trying to determine the right deterrent has been mystifying to me so far. Okay, one of the things in here would be to take somebody's license away from them. Well, some of these property owners bring their contractors in from their primary residence in Pennsylvania or DC or whatever, and their builder comes in not knowing what to do. They follow the instructions, they cut the tree down, they leave, they're gone. We've never seen them, we don't know who they are. And what do they care if they lose their license?
They don't have one anyway.
Because they don't have a license. So let's let, did you want to?
Just before we go into remedies, has something, well, let me characterize it like this. My opinion is this has always happened at some degree or another with properties. Has something generated more urgency about this than the common knowledge that this sometimes has happened in the past?
For me, it's accelerated.
Accelerated.
It's accelerated, and the size of the trees coming down are such that it's one thing to maybe violate the code with a 3-inch tree. It's another thing to violate it with a 3-foot diameter or 6-foot circumference tree. But I just thought it's time that we need to address it because for me, again, I believe it's accelerating. Do you have?
So in my time here, I'd agree with you, Mayor, that it has accelerated. There are those, as the Mayor said, I won't paraphrase, but would rather pay a fine and do what they want to do than abide by the rules. And we see that several times a year. And it creates, more work, and they just, whoever the individual is or their contractor, they just, it's not really scamming the system because they know probably know they're going to get caught, but it's just something that they're they don't care, probably.
What's the cost
They'd
of
rather,
But the thing is, this can accelerate. You've got property owners that maybe get a big fine and get slapped, and maybe they curtail it. They curtail it because their trees are already cut and they have nothing more that they want. But the builders that are consistently in here and building and pulling permits to build new houses year after year after year, they need to come into compliance also, and they're part of the problem. Some of them, that's a very small amount, but you still have the situation where big trees are being cut down, and then when they go to the next house, they were successful the first one. Why not continue with that program? Commissioner Legree, did you have?
Do we, I wish Glenn would be here. Do we have the rules on the books already and they're not being enforced? I can't imagine that that's the case.
Well, Liz, maybe you can share if you come to the microphone. They're being enforced, but they're not the deterrent that we need.
And the code that's attached to the agenda is the current code. It's just redlined with the changes that Glenn was suggesting. But we do have the code now, but that's part of the problem is it's not enough, I guess.
Sure. So like they said, it's already in practice. There is not a tree that comes down during a new construction or a major renovation that we don't find because we have a survey. It shows all the trees and I verify it multiple times. So if one goes missing or is destroyed, it's caught. I mean, if that happens 100 times, we catch them 99. Okay, it just doesn't really happen. Now, what somebody does not doing construction in their backyard when the neighbors don't notice, I don't think that's as common as what we're really dealing with here today. This is more like the mayor said about these egregious violations where people knowingly commit them and the money is no object because they are spending $1 million to build a house plus whatever the lot costs. So $3,000 fine, $10,000 fee in lieu of mitigation, those things mean very little to these people because it's just a tiny fraction in the cost of doing business.
Well, that we find, say, 99% of the trees cut at one point or another. That's laudable, but don't we want to stop it before they're cut down?
Yes.
Isn't that the goal?
Yes.
That's
we have a
what we
deterrent.
want.
Yeah.
Commissioner
I
Legree?
can't believe that pulling their license for a year does not have any kind of deterrent effect.
Well,
is that in here?
Well,
though?
let me tell you, the way the code is written.
No. Is that in the existing code?
Isn't it?
Yes and no. The way the code is written currently, any tree company.
Just tree company, right.
So the tree companies, Rehoboth has the most money. So if they make the majority of their income here, they're not risking that to do a $3,000 job when they're making $1 million here. That makes no business sense. Like the mayor said, these are kind of like your fly-by-night people, or maybe you live in Dover and this is your second home and you have your Dover tree company come and you put them up in a hotel, or they come for the day, or over from DC, or it's a landscaper and they don't really care, or a handyman who fancies themselves a tree person. So I don't think you're really seeing the main tree companies do this, honestly.
Oh,
Somebody has to hire these people.
Well, that's why, doesn't the revision language that Glenn's suggesting make the owner responsible as well? So then, and I think that's why we added that any city business license, including a city rental license.
well, let's start at the beginning here, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Sure.
Susan, if you want to lead the discussion on, and Liz, you can chime in, but let's read this and what the changes are, and you'll see what's proposed. Okay, and we appreciate you reacting to that. Again, this doesn't have to be done. I did it and was almost hopeful that we could vote on it at the next regular meeting, but it's not a zoning code issue, but I don't think we need to rush that much. But I'm hopeful that, this gets some awareness out in the media, and that people will think twice before cutting trees down. So, Commissioner Gay?
You want me to just to read in the proposed language?
Yeah, just a sentence at a time, and we can
Yep, sure.
comment
Okay.
on each.
Okay, so this is the current 25339 violations and penalties. Any person, owner, agent, contractor, lessee, or tenant
violating any provision of this article, including those who knowingly commit taking part or assist in such a violation, shall be punished as described herein, and addition thereto may be enjoined from continuing the violation.
So let's analyze each section real quick. The addition here was to be more expansive on who has responsibility.
Right. Each tree cut, damaged, or poisoned shall constitute a separate offense, and any tree removed without the proper permit is subject to a fine of $500. If said fine is not paid within 7 days, the fine will be $500 per day each day thereafter that the fine is not paid. And then
And I want to come back, we'll discuss that again, whether,
okay, yeah,
we'll come back and discuss that.
And then in addition to that, if said tree is removed by an individual or entity with a city business license or a city rental license, the city business license or city rental license may be revoked by the city pursuant to Chapter 120 of the Code, individual or entity to conduct any business within the city for a period of 2 years.
Again, let's come back to that. Go ahead and finish, please.
And then the last sentence just says, if said tree is removed by an unlicensed individual or entity, the individual or entity shall be ineligible to obtain any city business license or city rental license for a period of 2 years.
Okay, so let's take these individually. I'm going to start with the easiest one, the last sentence, 28 to lines 30. That is for the situation where somebody comes in and does something illegal, then in a year or so, they come and try to apply for a business license. We have the opportunity to turn them down. Would that happen? Is it realistic? I don't know, but I'm willing to throw every deterrent we can think of in there. Why might it not happen? Because of that scenario where I said the property owner has brought somebody down from their primary residence in Pennsylvania, and that tree company's doing a favor for their friend, and they don't ever intend to come to Deauville Beach anyhow. So that's a plus and a minus.
But in that case, would the owner be responsible, and that the owner, I mean, and again, the owner might not be planning to rent, but if they are, that's a great deterrent to lose that income for 2 years. Would they be responsible?
Absolutely. They
Okay,
go to
that's-
line, go to the first line in
Right,
here.
okay.
So
that-
they have
Yeah.
responsibility.
I think that's more meaningful than a fine, in a way. Wait, Tony's laughing.
Well, I'm only laughing because I'm always thinking about, well, how's somebody going to try to skirt it? So if it takes me 2 years to complete my house, I don't care that you took something away from me for 2 years.
I don't know, does it take 2 years?
I would be in favor of saying it's the contractor, it's the owner, and it's the entity that took the tree down. Because if you have all three.
Yeah.
So if you say to the contractor, I don't care who hired the tree person, and if the owner is absentee, I don't care. You took a tree down you should not have.
Right.
So Susan, would you put a note? Unfortunately, we don't have Glenn here. He mixed weeks up on vacation, so he's forgiven. But Susan, if you would make a note, let's talk with Glenn about the possibility of each entity involved in this
Okay.
gets a fine.
Has equal responsibility.
Yeah, but each gets that fine. And so that'll segue into what the fine is. You notice that I think we got rid of the range of fines, 250 to 500. I've always heard that judges like that range, so they've got the discretion. So I'm neither here nor there on the $500 fine and the fine per day. However, Susan, you mentioned something to me about is $500 fine for an illegally cut 4-inch tree the same as a $500 fine for an illegally cut 36-inch tree?
Where I think the numbers could really add up is if the 500 was applied to, inches of tree rather than a single tree, because as you just said, they're not all equally valuable. And coincidentally, in the last few weeks, it's in the last some months, the county has been talking about a buffer ordinance because of all the building and the clear cutting that's been going on with development. And most recently, they talked about the penalty. And of course, that's a different situation in a way because they're much bigger tracts of land. The buffers are, forested areas and all that. However, the fines that they came up with, and these are both for the builders as well as for HOAs and owners that come in after the fact,
they were charging $500 per square foot of disturbance. And if you disturb more than 100 square feet, it's $1,000 per square foot of disturbance. And, you know, those really add up, you know, to tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And so I think even though those developments are much larger than ours and we're looking at things on an individual lot, I think you could argue that much of the clear cutting is taking down the mature trees that are the buffer on that lot. You know, they're taking they're taking all of it by definition if they're clear cutting. So I think there is a relevance here to, you know, to looking at either a square foot amount or a size of tree amount and making that 500 applicable to that rather than just per tree. Because in one recent situation, you know, Liz told me about, there were 7 trees involved and the owner paid $3,500. No big deal.
Well, we should clarify, just not to make it more complicated, there is a B to this section in the code, right?
Yeah.
That has replanting requirements.
Right.
So even though this is 500 per tree, the replanting requirements, there's a B, and then there's also another thing about trees removed or damaged during construction.
Right.
It can be, you know, for a 20-inch tree, it could be 40 inches of planting.
Right.
And that's where the real money comes in.
Right.
Because that's expensive to plant those trees.
But following along with that, and this may sound not a stupid question, but does the city physically have the room to accommodate planting these trees?
Well, it's not even just the room, because we have streets. We have open streets. Last inventory, I don't know, 700 open spots possibly. The parks are considered adequately stocked.
And then maintenance.
That's so, like, say somebody owes us 100 trees. We cannot just go and plant 100 trees and expect me, my one part-time staff member, and a slew of contractors to take care of those at one time, because it's 2 years of watering, it's multiple times pruning, developmental, then maintenance, and then ultimately the cost of removing and then replanting a tree, right? Because once there's a tree there, we expect there to be a tree there. So there's a lot more than just somebody putting the tree in the ground. But that money goes into the fund, which can be used for maintenance or planting. So if they do like a fee in lieu of mitigation or something like that from Parks and Shade.
But that's a new tree, whereas I think the reason we're looking at maybe heftier fines is they're removing things that are irreplaceable, at least irreplaceable in over some period of time, if they're big and mature and, you know,
Just a clarification while we're all thinking about this. We're looking at business license and rental license.
Mm-hmm.
Is the building permit itself off the table?
I think there's something in there.
I know that when there's a violation, there's a stop work order, but then when the fines are paid, that gets lifted.
I know, but fundamentally, this conversation it's just the way I see things sometimes, that if what isn't working is the fact that it's a financial penalty.
Right.
I don't care what you do with a financial penalty. It's all about what an individual is prepared to bear.
Right.
And that can widely vary between everyone that's doing any kind of business in Rehoboth. I was trying to think about what's the biggest stick we have in a situation that, as the mayor described it, these are purposeful violations and they are accelerating. And once you allow people to teach others how to skirt and how to, that all it's going to cost you with a purposeful violation is some money. Right. You can always make more money. Is the building permit the only real stick that we have?
Or the certificate of occupancy.
Well, you're referring really to time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Time is the penalty.
Is money.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear it all the time in building and licensing, right? You take 2 days and you're costing them money. But what you're referring to, Commissioner Sharp, about revoking permits or what may have you is in 25338. So we can postpone action or denial of a pending permit, revocation of any issued building or demo permit or certificate of occupancy, revocation of any issued permit for tree removal, land clearance, specific performance, or other equitable relief in Chancery Court. So we do have that option.
Well, I mean, I am not adverse at all to increasing financial penalties, but there are going to be exceptions if you're that determined and purposeful. So I would much rather see something that your building permit will be revoked for a minimum of 2 years.
Yeah, I think that we have to have something like that in addition to the financial.
Well, I mean, we could always, obviously Glenn would have to weigh in, but if we revoke the building permit, one of the things we'd be aiming for is they'd have to go back in the queue. They'd have to get re-reviewed. They'd have to pay their fees again, right? But if it took them 2 months to get a building permit and the current time is at 5 weeks, then they're going to be another 5 weeks. They go to the back of the line again.
I do think that probably the biggest deterrent is a penalty such as getting rid of the building permit. However, I think we need to talk with Glenn about that, because having your scenario, for instance, having a building floored in with no roof on there, sit there for 2 years, the neighbor aren't going to like it. It's going to rot. There's going to be a lot of problems. So that maybe isn't the best scenario, but I think that's a good path, trying to do something like that.
I mean, Mayor, even in the way I think, even if you never invoked it, the power has got to be there.
That's the object.
Which is the deterrent in its own.
Yes.
Because I would think the first thing that's coming down before construction is the space in which to construct. So ergo the trees. if that's what one wants to do. And I'm only focused on, the reason I asked you why now is because a very well explained acceleration component. Acceleration and purposeful violation. And to me, that should invoke the highest power that the city has as something that someone comes in to build. That should be the first thing they're made aware of, that here's what is at stake. Because we already know how much our community values trees, and we need to use that power as a deterrent, in my opinion.
So it's interesting you bring that up. We had spoken about, so currently when we have the demo contractor sign like a little statement saying basically all the trees have to be protected during demo, nothing can be removed. And we had explored basically doing the same thing for with the builder and the actual owner of the property. So not just their representative, but the person that's paying for all this work having to sign something saying, we understand trees cannot be removed unless we have a valid permit, and these are the potential penalties if trees are removed without. Fines, I believe this is still criminal, so fines, the criminal aspect, the replanting, revocation of permits, not being allowed to get a business license or a rental license. So it wasn't just all after the fact, because I'm afraid that people don't read this until they need to read it, right? Until they've done it or have already in their mind made up that they're going to do it. So maybe if we put that letter at the outset, it deters people, hopefully, just a little bit. I mean, it's a letter. It's not like it's something big and dramatic that we have to do. So, but that's something small, an action we can kind of take at the front end at least.
Liz or Evan, do either of you know what the appeal process is? If anybody objected to getting charged with any of these, is there an appeal process? Do they appeal to the Parks and Shade Tree Commission?
So
here's not the soft part of me on this, but there was a recent case where somebody wanted to come in and bury something in the yard, and the tree that was noted to be saved, they cut it down so they could get their machine back there, I mean, to me, it's it's not as egregious as some of these other situations, but it's still a bad situation. But I was just curious, is there an appeal process there?
So speaking to Glenn recently, he was pretty adamant that park and shade is only if you do things the right way, and that if you are caught what we're talking about, then you're going to court. That you don't get park and shade anymore. That is off the table. So, but
Again,
I've never
appeal
had anybody
process.
challenge we've never had anybody challenge the fines yet.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Mayor, in what you were just describing, and I know you have a much softer heart than I do, but in that scenario, a piece of equipment, a purposeful taking down of a tree to accommodate a piece of equipment, am I hearing that there's no real penalty for that?
Well, it would be the same as what we're proposing here.
Well,
I'm just said, does it fit the crime? You know, I mean, some of these scenarios I described to you are quite a different scale than what that person did. I
Well,
still
there
think
are-
it's
there are
bad.
also
I still think we need to educate and continue to educate and hold them accountable somehow. I'm not sure.
And there are situations, this is the part of me that's soft, I don't mean for it to sound too soft, but there are situations where mistakes are made, you know? And I think that was this.
well, so the case you guys are talking about, they had to move something after the fact. It was a subcontractor. The house was done. The landscaping was done. The orange fencing was all gone. The silk fence was all gone. So the subcontractor went in there with their normal, say, 4-foot wide piece of equipment, whatever size they use, saw the tree, which was an 8-inch tree, a dogwood. So it wasn't that, it wasn't like a 30-inch oak. And they just said, shoot, cut it and moved on. Could they have gone back and gotten a smaller piece of equipment? Of course. But the orange fence wasn't there, right? So there was how we had talked about that previously. Yes, it doesn't really prevent root damage, but it's the stay away factor.
Right.
50% chance if the orange fence was there, the tree wouldn't have got cut down.
Right.
Right? I mean, how much can we really expect like a propane subcontractor, somebody who digs holes and moves propane tanks, really to know?
So Susan, what's your list of things that we want to
Well,
follow
each
up with Glenn
entity
on?
would get a fine, and that is there an appeal process for fines and violations?
No, there was a third one, possibly on the fine reflecting the caliber of tree.
Right, yeah, and then the amount of the fine, right.
Would that help us on line 20 if we put minimum in there? So it would say any tree removed without the proper permit will be subject to a minimum fine of $500.
We have to
based-
check with Glenn because
Yeah.
there's legalese there. And like I said earlier, for 20 years, I've been hearing that there needs to be a range. And now all of a sudden there's not, and I'm not sure why, but
And I guess the other thing I'll add is and this is a timing issue, the next section of the tree ordinance, the last section that we're going to talk about after all the hours we've spent on it so far, is this new Article 4 on enforcement and violations. And in the draft, that actually has the fine at $1,000 per tree. That's what that came up with during the creation of the hybrid process.
that's based on your talks with Law Oversight Committee,
And-
Trees and Green
correct.
Infrastructure, Parks and Shade Tree Commission, Planning Commission.
So that's what's in there for that. And again, I'm not even sure that that's, I mean, because I think it's $1,000 per tree, and maybe that's not enough. Maybe we need to have it be based on the size trees and these other issues we're talking about. But I'm just saying that's what's in the draft for the new
So
one.
if we seek these things to resolve and bring them back, I guess at the next workshop meeting, are there other things that you want to address? Again, we don't have to be lightning speed with this, but I would like it on our plate to resolve as soon as
Well,
possible.
in terms of timing, if you say we're going to talk about some of these issues outside and with Glenn and then come back to the next workshop, by the time of the next workshop, we should be talking about the entire section for the new code for this. So I think those things are going to collide very soon, this discussion and that discussion.
Well, then, will we be working from this version or your version?
Whatever you want.
'Cause to me, this is the base of,
Right, okay, that's fine. And
Foundation.
we can certainly incorporate, I might leave the 1,000 since that's in the hybrid draft, but we can certainly incorporate the changes Glenn has put in here about who is responsible and losing lights on it, make sure that's tightened.
if the response here was, oh man, that's fantastic, let's go forward, I'd put it forward for a vote. that's how interested I am in expediting this. However, there are some questions. I think it prudent to bring it up at at the next tree meeting, which is
yeah.
the
Well, it's either the 12th or the 26th, depending on the availability of Glenn to do the entire section.
12th or the 26th. Now, what that means is we get to look at it again, and my desire would be, again, to act on this separately when we're comfortable with it, not waiting another month or two or whatever.
And Mayor, where are we on the permit thing? Is there any energy around, this is only referencing licenses?
Yeah, we'll put that on there
Okay.
too. It's got the rental license, business license, and then we'll look at permits. And it sounds like we need to look at the rest of the code as well, Liz.
Yeah, because there are other,
B was supposed to be
sections.
on here, and it's not.
well, and then there's the whole section about during construction, because that's actually harsher or
Yep.
stricter
Yep.
penalties. But we should, on line 16, we should make sure it's both articles, or however many articles we end up with the new one. Because I've run into this before where it says article, and then they violate
Right.
something in Article 1.
I see, yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
hopefully just
Well,
making
that will
plural.
be changed in the new code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just clarification, I think we should say city residential rental license, because that's how it's described in the code. To go back to reference that, just the term residential. And was there any further kind of traction, if you will, about the additional fine for inch of tree cut or just taken down? The 500 is a base, but as was referenced, a 4-inch dogwood versus a 30-inch tree, it's $500 per tree, but if you go with additional inches, a minimum of 500 per tree, and then to get complicated or something, but over 4 inches, it's $100 per inch or $1,000 per inch.
Well, it sounds like as part of our next tree code review, this will be more expansive, and I think that will be part of that conversation.
Didn't the charter come into play? There was a
That's for
limitation in the
civil
charter?
offenses.
Okay.
As long as this stays a criminal offense, I don't think that applies, but I don't know
Okay.
that for sure.
I mean,
But
to
believe
me-
that is for civil offenses, right?
Yes.
I mean, when we add in the replanting component, which is, it's not another fine, but it's another financial cost, I think that's where they differ. So I don't know if it's necessary to have it per inch in both of them unless we just want to increase the amount of money, period.
Well, again, as going back to Commissioner Sharp's comment, it's a deterrent as much as it is if we have it actually comes into fruition. People may think about it, cutting down a 30-inch tree at $1,000 an inch. That could be a vacation somewhere or a new pool deck or something.
Vacation, 30K.
I know. I want to go on your vacations.
Well, you look to others, okay? So,
How many times have we had the occasion where an unlicensed, out-of-town tree contractor came in and cut trees down?
Well, it's hard to, what normally happens, either say like the builder or the owner just admits and they're like, we were working and it fell in the hole. Like the excavation hole. So they'll call, or the owner said, we just moved here from so-and-so. We didn't realize there were rules around this. If it's really bad and they know they were wrong, usually nobody admits who did it.
So how many times?
I
Hard to say.
I mean, we could probably go back and pull all the fines I've issued in 6 years.
Half a dozen a year?
Yeah,
that
but
we-
even this most recent one, we don't know where they came from. So we can't identify whether they're in-state, out-of-state.
I'd say maybe like a third of the time it's unknown would be the best case. Where?
So how'd we know they were unlicensed or unknown or from out of town? How'd we find that out?
We don't. I mean, we have the police contact them, and if they don't tell us who did the work and nobody sees the contractor doing the work, I mean, there's no way to find out who did it.
I already asked if there were Ring doorbells nearby that had video, but was told that that was unlikely.
You contacted the owner of the house and they didn't know, the owner of the parcel?
No, they won't
talking.
reveal.
But, yeah.
Not a problem, you can find that out. Just slap a lien on their property. But what do we do do we have any ability to seize equipment or anything like that?
No.
Is that not an option? When someone
If we're gonna
comes in and-
revoke a business license, that's the same.
They don't have a business license, they're from out of town.
I think the police can do, I mean, building and licensing would know better, or the police, but I think the police are sometimes called to job sites when they're unlicensed contractors.
Well, we can make them cease and desist, but seizing equipment, no. I mean, unless there's, a legitimate reason to do that, I think having them stop, if we see something, then that's different.
Yeah, so say there's like a roofer working and they're doing a job without a permit and they're unlicensed, they'll stop them, they'll make them come and get a business license and then get a permit, and I think the fee is tripled for starting work without a permit, I believe, for the building permits. So, I mean, but we don't take their equipment or anything beyond that.
All right,
We were
so,
talking about things to put in the ordinance, but you just don't know. If this only happened once or twice, then I'm wasting everybody's time by talking about it. But if it happened 20 times,
Well, sometimes the threat of it is, even if it doesn't happen, having it in print in front of you that it could happen is deterrent.
and I'd rather have as many deterrents in there as possible.
well, then it's just an option.
So Commissioner Gay, you have a
I have my
list that
list.
we'll confer with our little group
Okay.
and resolve, and then we'll look forward to either on the 12th or the 26th for the next tree meeting to be able to have this in there as a foundation, but also expanded and go from there. So we'll move diligently forward, and again, this may be finally addressed and voted on separate from the entirety of the hybrid tree code at that point. Any further questions? No members of the public? All right, thank you very much, Liz. Thank you, Susan. With that, we'll go to item D of new business, discuss amending Chapter 92, automobiles, vehicles and traffic by amending 92-264E1 relating to special considerations and exceptions specific to parking. You have it there, yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. So before you is an ordinance to amend Chapter 92, Section 264E1 relating to special considerations and exceptions. Item E1 here specifically details vehicles or RVs parking at the Deauville Beach parking lot. So for item E1, the first change that we had made was to amend the length and width requirements of the vehicles, which relates to a previous ordinance that was enacted by you all quite some time ago, where we essentially increased the width and length of vehicles allowed to park in town just because of the increase in size of the vehicles that we see on the street today.
Evan, we had, just a reminder, you mentioned we saw it before, just specifically December 6th, 2021 is when we actually voted on the length and the width.
Yes.
So we did part of our homework then, now we need to address the second part.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. So that was the first change. The second change is back in 2019, we actually implemented a tiered rate for vehicles exceeding this length and width that are parking at the Deauville Beach parking lot. At the time, we had a fee of $30 for the weekday and $40 for the weekend day for any vehicles that are 20 feet to 30 feet in length. And for any vehicle that was over 30 feet, the weekday price was $45 and weekend day price was $60. The recommendation here is just to implement one fee for the weekday and one fee for the weekend day, just to, simplify the process down there so we're not in the business of verifying lengths of vehicles as they come into the lot. So I will open it up to any questions you all have.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. When I first saw this, I thought, well, why not go for the higher price? Parking is such a premium, and a 30-foot or 45-foot Class A motorhome certainly consumes a lot of parking, car spaces, that is. Do we have any data that shows how many short vehicles versus long vehicles park there?
We do not. I will say that it's not very common for us to get requests to park an RV down at Deauville Beach. It's just the size of the lot. I mean, it fills up pretty quickly with standard sized vehicles, and then we typically designate a space for RVs. One of the changes we're making this year is we actually are going to designate a section of Deauville Beach which could accommodate up to possibly 4 RVs, again, depending on length. But again, we're just trying to, streamline the process down there and put a plan in place. But no, we do not have data for the 20 to 30 feet or the greater than 30 feet.
Remind me, what is the price for just a car?
15 for the weekday and then 20 for the weekend day. So it's
this is
essentially double.
Okay.
And what about last year? I had seen some tour buses parked down there. Do they fall under this?
They would, yes.
Really?
So we have the tour buses. Really, the city of Rehoboth Beach, the code says that there's no vehicles allowed to park in town if they're over 40 feet in length. So they should not be parking down there at Deauville. I mean, there may be some cases where they're picking people up or discharging them, but that would be an enforcement issue because they're only allowed to pick up and discharge from the city hall lot here.
So they should not be parking.
Should not be parking down there, no.
And they shouldn't even be
Not
picking up
for the
there.
larger tour buses.
And they shouldn't be even dismissing or picking up there, you're saying?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and do buses have to have a permit to do that? They have to pay the city something to even come into the city?
If they want to park for the day or they want to park overnight, they have to pay the fee for the convention center lot.
But not if they're just coming in to drop off or pick up?
Nope. That was something that was discussed quite a while ago, but the enforcement of that was very difficult. And we had done some data collection in terms of the providers that come into town. Again, it was just enforcement was very difficult to implement a program like that.
Okay, well,
So just
a lot of people with a free
I
ride.
guess I've looked at, parking fees have gone up over the years, and we haven't changed this parking for a while, I don't think, have we?
Yeah, so the tiered rates were implemented back in 2019.
19. And did they go up?
I believe they did. I don't know that we had a tiered rate structure before, so it might have just been the standard fee for weekday and weekend, which is 15 and 20.
So Evan, could you say again, how many RVs could we accommodate?
At most, it would be about 4.
And they would be approximately 22 feet?
They would be slightly over that. Again, it really depends on the size of the RVs that come.
How many spaces do they take up?
I'm not really sure. It really depends whether they're parallel parking. Typically, what we try to do is have them back in,
Yeah.
so that again they're not occupying a large number of spaces.
Are they
but,
occupying more than 2?
They could,
Because
depending
in
on the
that
width.
case, the fee should be.
Well, you're following where my mind
Yeah,
is
right,
going.
exactly.
That
It
to
should
me,
be
this is a bargain at best.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not certain why we would extend that bargain.
And thinking bargain there, I'm curious as to why we discriminate between weekday and weekend. It should just be a flat fee for the season.
I mean, for just for these or for
Correct.
everybody?
I'm starting here, but yeah. I mean, our parking fees, parking meters, everything's, flat fee, if you will. With
Well, the
that,
permits aren't.
well, agreed, but I don't necessarily agree with that either. But I'm just saying, there's a starting place here of just a flat fee.
Is this just for Deauville Beach?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I have an RV and I'm parked on Henlopen Avenue, do I need to get a different parking permit?
You would need to get a parking permit. It gets into the length. So if the vehicle is over 40 feet, then you have to
And what are those fees? Do you know right offhand?
standard permit fee.
So no difference between a car and an RV?
Correct.
Oh, boy. We gotta change that.
Well, so that's interesting, actually,
Yeah.
because you can get an RV that consumes 2 parking spaces, paying for the price of 1 parking space. So
Or
maybe
if you have a
maybe
dog
that-
walker license, you can get a parking permit for free for your $75 dog walking license and park your RV anywhere you want to.
So maybe that needs to be looked at, too.
How many are we having? How many, oh, you said you didn't know.
Yeah, we don't know. It is, we only get maybe a few a season.
So Evan, what is the timeline on this? Is this something we need to, want to pass before summertime? In other words, is there time of the essence we need to act on this or consider it at the April regular meeting?
Yes, ideally, the April regular meeting would be great because part of the reason this came up is because we're preparing for the parking meter configuration, so that's when we need to set up the rate structures. And you'll recall that you all authorized the purchase of 1 parking meter down at Deauville Beach to accept credit cards. So in that case, I'll just need to institute whatever fee for RV parking on that meter down there.
All right. So are there any desire to make any changes to what's in front of us before I put it on the agenda for consideration at the April 19th regular meeting?
I would suggest that the only change that I would suggest is, since it's Deauville Beach and it's a unique situation in there, is just do a flat fee for the season. And, you know, whether it's weekday or weekend or what have you, would that be easier to program the meter in that regard? Just keep it as simple as we can, I think.
I also think if the average RV is taking up more than 2 spaces, that the fee should be proportionate. Like, I mean, it's double cars now, but if it's taking up more than 2, it ought to reflect that.
Can we accommodate that?
What's that? The
More than 2 spaces?
we could. So really, because Deauville Beach is a gravel lot, none of the spaces are marked. So it's really difficult to determine how much space they're really taking up or how many spaces they're taking up. But I would say it would probably be uncommon for them to take up more than 2 spaces. Because you figure a space is probably 9 feet wide, so maybe 18 feet in
So
width.
as long as they're not parking parallel, then,
Right,
I guess.
exactly, yep. One thing that I'll add to the Commissioner Gossett, your comment about sort of like a seasonal rate, I think the weekday rate is sort of a deterrent in the sense that if they have to pay that rate every single day to park there, they're less likely to keep it there or come down every single day for a week or a month or 2 months. So I do think the weekday rate may be a little bit of a deterrent to keep some of the RVs from parking there long-term.
I'm saying like $50 flat rate per day.
Per day,
Days
okay,
and
okay.
weekends.
Yeah.
I understand.
I think that, if you're trying to deter it, that, you know,
Okay.
I just my.
Per day flat rate, not seasonal
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there other places in town that are set up for RV parking? Are there, at the transit station out there, do they have parking, RV parking or anything?
I don't know that the transit station does. The only,
Anywhere.
yeah, the only other location that we have in town is the convention center parking lot. I believe we have 3 dedicated spaces for those.
But they don't have ocean views.
Right.
I'm just thinking, if I'm coming to town to visit my brother-in-law and his wife, and I'm gonna be here for a week, just wondered if they could go anywhere else besides $50 a day.
Cheaper than a hotel room.
$50 a day is a deterrent, huh?
It's cheaper than a hotel room.
Yeah.
Evan, can you summarize what you think you've heard here?
Well, certainly if there's consensus to just go with a flat rate per day of $50, I can make that change for the April regular meeting.
Is that
That's good for me.
pleasure of the commissioners to put it on? When we get to it, we can always reduce it, but we can't go up. So is everybody comfortable with just a flat rate of $50 a day for RV parking? I think probably what it's going to do is shock people, and then they're going to go find a space on Henlopen Avenue or Columbia to park. And what's the daily rate there on Henlopen?
Well, the permit fee would be $15 per day.
15?
Yes.
And why wouldn't you go up by the cemetery on Henlopen and park with a
Maybe we ought
permit
to change that.
for $15?
And that's if they're under the 40 feet. If they're over 40 feet, then they have to go to either Deauville Beach or to the convention center lot.
Yeah, but there's this big gap in between 22 and 40, so I think we ought to change it.
I'd bring it down below 40.
Yeah.
I'd bring it way down. For the permit parking area.
Explain. Are you referring to this, lower it from 50?
No, no. I thought we said people would go park on Henlopen or by the cemetery or something like that.
Yeah, but you said bring it down. It's
Bring the
already,
limit down for those areas. I thought we already had them
$15.
down, huh?
It's $15, right, to park on Henlopen?
Length limit. I thought we had it down to the limit of a pickup truck or something.
Yeah, that's the 22 feet, 3 inches in length.
That's plenty.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good. So the guy with the 40-foot RV is not gonna go over on and park in front of it. Maybe I'm missing this conversation.
No, I missed that, yeah.
Okay, we're good. We're good. Yeah, let's just,
I'm confused now. So, because I do know all summer long, only because I live on Henlopen Avenue, that there are RVs that park there during the summer. So are we saying still that's okay and it's $15?
If they're under 40 feet in length, then it's all right. We do encourage them if there's
Make
an,
it 22.
yeah, make it pickup length, I thought. I thought that's what we did.
no, the section of the code, there is a section of the code, I don't recall this, the part of this chapter, but it does say that no vehicle which is over 40 feet in length can park within the incorporated limits of the city of Rehoboth Beach unless it's at Deauville Beach or the convention center parking lot.
So that takes care of the
Only if
fellow
they're
who's
over
parking
40.
on
Only if they're over
Tim
40.
Street.
Takes care of that. Only if they're over 40 feet.
So 22 to 40, they could park there
22
for
to 40, they could park
$15.
there for a bargain, and I think that's what the mayor's saying, that they would not park at Deauville because they're gonna have to pay $50, but they can go park on Henlopen Avenue for 15.
Now I'm confused again. Do,
Why don't-
yeah, let's square it away.
Let's resolve this and vote on it at the next
Yeah.
meeting. Is that all right? And then unfortunately, I think we're going to have to defer on the other because there's really not time to introduce it, give public feedback, and address it. And we do have a list of other parking things to do and address at the end of summer. So yeah, we might be short one summer on it, but is everybody comfortable with that? So Evan, you're going to redo this for a flat rate fee of
$50?
$40 or $50?
50, I think is what we said.
$50 a day.
And that would only be proposed 50, and if we decided to bring it down, I just don't want it to be characterized in the press that we have decided on 50.
No,
Okay.
that would be a maximum
Yeah, thank you.
based on how we do agendas. Anybody else? If not, thank you very much. We'll go to the next item of business, which is introduction of celebrating the city's 150th anniversary in 2023. Commissioner Bennett, please.
Thank you. I hope many of you have not bought your party supplies yet for the 150th. When I was running for office, I looked up the dates for the founding of the city of Rehoboth, and it said 1873. So during our initial budget discussions with city manager, I asked about for 2023 whether we had considered doing something for the sesquicentennial. So city manager, myself, and a few others have been discussing about putting together a celebration for our 150th. And subsequent to the agenda being submitted, some additional research came about that although January 27th, 1873 was the Camp Meeting Association, 1881 that was disbanded, 1891 we were incorporated as Cape Henlopen City, and then in 1893 we were renamed Rehoboth Beach. So I was probably 20 years early, but the mayor had asked if I would still serve on the committee, which I will. And then again, we were trying to find some notes or discussions as to what the city did for their 100th. And the city manager had some commemorative coins that were done, and in kind of very microscopic print, they actually used 1891, which would have been the Cape Henlopen City date. And then Assistant City Manager Evan Miller said, oh, we just ordered some flags that has a date on it as well, which was 1891. So we decided as a small ad hoc group that I jumped the gun and we all jumped the gun. So there will be no 150th next year.
So essentially, Tim's 20 years ahead of time.
But however.
But he assured me that he would still be around and willing to sponsor it in 20 years.
Well, plus, Mayor, if we start planning now, we got 20 years to really have a bang-up celebration.
There we go. There we go.
But it did lend to confusion, as we've found, because our Wikipedia page says 1873.
Well, and I think I have a sweatshirt that has that date on it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of places you see that date.
Right, but we had gone back to what the commemorative coin said and then what the flag says, and we decided that it's probably 1891.
Have you had a conversation with Paul Lovett about the dates?
I have not, but I know that Lynn in communications spoke to the museum, and they're doing something around 1873, but it's more historical in nature, I believe, about the founding of the religious camp, which isn't the city per se.
Well, you may be pleased to know, Tim, that in 2016, on the occasion of the 125th birthday, I wrote a letter in the paper called Happy Birthday, Rehoboth Beach. So we did sort of commemorate the 125th.
2024 is the 500-year anniversary of Verrazano.
Wow.
Yeah,
When he anchored out here off our shore.
You can handle that one, Commissioner LeGray.
Well, Commissioner
500th
Bennett,
anniversary, that'd be nice.
Commissioner Bennett, thank you for your
Thank
efforts
you.
on that. We'll keep tuned on that. The next item of business is review future meeting dates, including anticipated schedule for the mayor and commissioners to address comprehensive development plan. Unfortunately, I didn't get this document done in time to send it out. I will distribute it and we'll embed it in the agenda. It's fairly complicated, so I'm going to describe it, but I'm not expecting you to take notes on everything because it'd be, again, easier when you get it in person. But as you know, the Planning Commission has had the CDP in their lap for quite some time, and it soon will be time for the commissioners to get it. The Planning Commission meeting scheduled already by Mike Bryan, the chair, are April 22nd. There's a public hearing, 2 p.m. April 29th, there's a follow-up to the public hearing, 2 p.m. And then May 13th, they're intending to vote to adopt the CDP. And after adoption, it would be passed on to the mayor commissioners at a 2 p.m. meeting. So again, May 13th is a date to focus on where we would be sent the final adopted CDP. In reacting to that, I've tried to set up a schedule so that everybody has advance notice and try to clear their schedules. Unfortunately, it's probably way expansive above what we need. However, I feel the obligation and the need to be able to schedule too many meetings because I don't know how many meetings we're going to spend on it. Just don't know. So what I've tried to do is create a schedule for all the mayor and commissioners' CDP public meetings to be scheduled as special meetings on Tuesdays, beginning at 9 a.m. However, again, you'll see this, and it's more explanatory when I send it to you. Dates that are double underlined have a possible afternoon session in addition to the morning session, which means 2 sessions all day. But again, I do not know if that's needed or not, but I have to plan for it. Some of the monumental dates here on May 16th is actually when we would receive the CDP from Wallace Montgomery, because they will be updating it as adopted by the Planning Commission. Over the weekend, they will be working and get it into our hand on the 16th, because on the 17th is one of those days where I would devote to Mayor and Commissioners Public Meeting number 1, and we would target specific chapters to review. On May 24th, the following week, we would continue with additional meetings, definitely the morning, possibly the afternoon, and I just have to gauge that as we move along. We would continue review of chapters and complete the review. And now here's something very, very important. We need to complete the review May 17th, 24th, even the 31st if needed, and make a determination whether or not significant changes need to be included in the CDP. Because if significant changes are made and proposed to the CDP, then that requires us to resubmit to the plus group. And the plus group, I'm going to go over a timeline here. If we do not have significant changes to the CDP, then we don't need to resubmit to the plus group, and we can proceed to the meeting on the 31st or continue. June 1st is the deadline for submittal of any significant changes to the CDP to the plus group. So what does significant mean? Well, what's not significant are general editorial type edits. They're not considered significant. In other words, grammar, spelling, as long as they don't change the initial meaning of what's written. But here are some significant changes that would require us to go back to the plus group. That changes to the future land use map or changes to the potential annexation areas are considered significant, except when addressing a plus comment. Changes affecting the county or a neighboring jurisdiction would be considered significant. Changes to policy or implementation items that are contrary to those identified in the plus review would be considered significant. And changes to the city's position other than editorial would be considered significant. So it's hard to say what's black and white, what significant is. That's why Lauren of Wallace and Montgomery will be attending our meetings with us to give us some guidance and know that. But why is this so important? Because the time frame, depending on the path forward, is so critical. That's why I have to schedule all these meetings. So, for instance, if there are no significant changes to the CDP that we identify as a group, then resubmittal to the plus is not required. And in which case, those are due on June 1st. We would know before that whether they're required to be submitted or not. And we would just continue with our Tuesday meetings as needed and just carry this through completion. And completion means public hearing, adoption, submittal to the state as a final product. That's so that we could be done early as in June possibly, if there are no significant changes. Now, if there are significant changes made to the CDP, then it will need to be resubmitted to plus on or before June 1st. If so, if we submit it to the plus group, then the meetings will go dormant until after receipt of the plus review comments. Now, here's the time frame. So if there are significant changes, we have to submit by June 1st. The plus meeting is held on June 22nd. We would expect to receipt of the plus comments the week of July 18 to 22. And from the time we receive that at an unknown date, we have till July 29th to vote on it and do the final adoption, which means once we receive the plus comments, I want us to be ready on July 22nd, 26th, and 29th with a public hearing on the 26th. And again, I can't say how much time we're going to need for this. We have to be flexible. I will only conduct the meetings as required, and we will know after each meeting whether we need the next meeting or not and when it will be. And I'm asking the committee chairs to please adjust your schedules. If you've got meetings on Tuesdays, please adjust your schedules to accommodate the mayor and commissioner public meeting on the dates shown. So again, this will be embedded in the agenda. I will also send it out to you all directly. I apologize ahead of time, but this is the safe route because we absolutely don't want to be the ones that cause it to be delayed and miss our deadline date because we know of all the penalties that happen there. So again, I will send this out to everybody, and then certainly if you have questions, please give me a call. Hopefully, if we followed along enough and there are no significant changes, then we can get done early and we don't need all these meetings. And then again, if we do have significant changes and it goes again, we submit it on June 1st, and then we've got a hiatus until July 22nd.
Can I also add that one of the things that they're recommending this time is that we adopt it by ordinance, which I believe has not happened before. So we would have to have the ordinance written for the meeting where we approve it.
Correct.
And who is they?
Oh, I'm sorry, the state.
Thank you.
The State Office of Planning in their plus report.
Thank you.
And actually, when I was on the Planning Commission, I went to a seminar a few years ago on the development plan process, and that was one of the main messages of the day, is that all plans should be adopted by ordinance. So I've kind of had that in my head since it was drilled into. So I was not surprised to see it in the state's letter, but my understanding is we have not done it that way before.
Well, and you'll see on here our schedule with July 22nd, a morning and possibly afternoon sessions, the ditto July 26th and 29th. If we indeed are going to have a public hearing this day, then we need to have the ordinance in front of us earlier. Plus, we need to adopt the resolution setting the public hearing. So this is all a very, very tight time frame, unfortunately. And it is what it is. And I'm convinced that we're all committed and we'll do a good job getting it resolved. Any further questions? If not, thank you very much. And we can take that baby down. We can take that baby down. With that, are there any commissioner announcements or comments?
Just one is that in the process of city manager search, our consultant has reached out to everyone on the commission here to set up an interview time on Monday, April the 11th. And if you haven't been able to schedule your time, please call Margaret to confirm that time. And once those times are confirmed, the search consultant will send out a list of questions to be discussed at that period of time so that we can keep the process moving forward.
That's next Monday.
It is.
Okay.
And the interview will be conducted by phone or by a Zoom call, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Commissioner. And with that, I just want to remind people of future Board of Commissioners meetings, April 12th, tentatively, if we get our legal review done in time, that will be a tree meeting number 5. And the subsequent meeting to that would be tree meeting number 6 on April 26th. Again, provided we get the legal review in time. April 19th would be our regular Board of Commissioners meeting because the regular date of April 15th is Good Friday, so we've changed that. Also let you know that the dedication of a VIA surf marker is scheduled for Thursday, April 14th at 10 a.m. down at the end of Rehoboth Avenue. If you recall, that's the VIA sponsored that historical marker, touting the wonders of the surf line so that people could drag themselves out of the surf in the old days with heavy bathing suits on. Are there any further comments?
Say again on tree meeting number 6, what time of the day?
9 a.m.
Got you.
And again, if April 12th doesn't happen, then April 26th will definitely happen. If April 12th does happen, we're still having it on the 26th. Is that all right?
Because we'll never be done.
All righty. With that, thank you. We call this meeting adjourned at 11:09 a.m. Thank you very much.